The great chamber of the Galactic Federation floated in the darkness of space, its crystal walls reflecting the light of 1,000 stars. Inside, beings from across the galaxy sat in worried silence. The emergency meeting had been called for the first time in 300 years. Ambassador Taman stood at the center of the room. His blue skin seemed pale under the bright lights. Around him, creatures of every shape and size waited for his words. Some had wings, others had tentacles, and a few looked almost like trees with eyes. But all of them shared the same fear. "We are losing," Taman said, his voice carrying across the silent chamber. "The Void Swarm has taken 47 star systems in just 6 months. Our fleets cannot stop them." A hologram appeared above his head, showing the edge of the galaxy. Red dots marked the destroyed systems. Stott had once been home to billions of lives. Now they were empty space, consumed by something that came from the dark void between galaxies. Elder Hyjin rose from a crystal chair. She was old, even by the standards of her ancient race. Her people had watched civilizations rise and fall for millions of years. When she spoke, everyone listened. "The swarm is unlike anything we have faced before," she said. "Their ships are alive. They heal themselves. They grow stronger with each battle. Our energy weapons barely scratch them." General Minsu of the Centauri Empire slammed his 6 arms on the table. "Then we build bigger weapons. We send more ships." "We tried that," Taman replied sadly. "The Battle of Rajal Prime. We sent our largest fleet, 3,000 ships. Only 12 came back." The chamber erupted in worried voices. Some spoke in languages that sounded like music. Others made clicking sounds or low rumbles. But all were saying the same thing. They were afraid. Admiral Kohan of the Federation Navy stood up. His uniform was covered in medals from 100 battles. But now he looked defeated. "The swarm learns from every fight. They adapt. When we use plasma cannons, they grow armor against plasma. When we use missiles, they develop new defenses. It is like fighting our own shadow." A young scientist named Dr. Jin stepped forward. She had been studying the swarm for months. "I have examined their biology," she said. "They are not truly alive as we understand life. They are something else. Something that should not exist in our universe." "Then how do we fight them?" asked Captain Wu Jin from his floating chair. Dr. Jin looked around the room. "We cannot. Not with our current methods. The swarm thinks as one mind. They have no fear, no doubt, no individual will. They are perfect soldiers." "Perfect soldiers," repeated Elder Hyjin slowly. "But perhaps that is their weakness. They are too perfect, too predictable." As the old being walked to the center of the chamber, her footsteps echoed in the silence. "There is a legend among my people. It's a story of a young race that fights wars differently than we do. A race that does not seek perfection in battle, but chaos." Ambassador Taman frowned. "What race?" "They call themselves humans," Hyjin said. "They live on a small world called Earth, far from here. We have watched them for some time. They are unusual." A new hologram appeared, showing a blue and green planet orbiting a yellow star. The image zoomed in to show cities, oceans, and mountains. It looked peaceful, but the data told a different story. "They have been at war for their entire history," Dr. Janae read from her files. "Not just with other species, but with themselves. They fight over land, resources, ideas, even the color of their skin." "Barbarians," muttered General Minsu. "Perhaps," said Hyjin, "but effective barbarians. They have a saying on their world: if you want peace, prepare for war. They never stop preparing for war." Commander Yanho leaned forward. "What makes them so different?" Jin brought up more data. "They are predators. Most spacefaring races evolve from prey animals or plant eaters. But humans evolve from hunters. Their eyes face forward, like all predators, they think like predators. More than that, added Hygiene, they have something we have lost. Something we gave up when we became civilized. What? Asked several voices at once. The willingness to become monsters. The chamber fell silent. The idea was shocking to most of them. They had spent thousands of years evolving beyond their violent natures. They fought wars with rules, with honor, with mercy. The idea of becoming monsters was terrifying. Ambassador Taman studied the human data. They have barely left their home system. Their technology is primitive. Their fastest ships would take years to reach us, but they learned quickly, said Dr. Janae. In just 50 years, they went from flying in the air to walking on their moon. In another 50 years, they built ships that could travel between stars. Elder Hygiene nodded. They are young and wild and dangerous. Perfect qualities for fighting an enemy like the swarm. You want to hire them as soldiers? Asked Captain Wu Zhen in disbelief. I want to make them an offer, replied Hygiene. We give them our technology, our medicine, our knowledge. In return, they give us their warriors. The debate that followed lasted for hours. Some argued that it was too dangerous to trust a primitive species with advanced technology. Others said it was foolish to expect help from beings who still fought wars among themselves. But as the hours passed, the truth became clear. They were running out of options. The swarm was moving toward the core worlds. Soon, they would reach the Federation capital itself. General Minsu stood up slowly. I have fought in 1,000 battles, he said. I've seen every type of enemy, but the swarm is different. They do not fear death because they do not truly live. They do not feel pain because they are not truly alive. To fight them, we need soldiers who can match their lack of mercy. The humans have another quality, added Dr. Janae quietly. They never give up. Even when facing certain defeat, they keep fighting. There are stories of human soldiers who continued to fight even after suffering wounds that would kill most beings. The vote was called. One by one, the representatives of dozens of worlds cast their choice. Some voted with hope, others with desperation. But in the end, decision was clear. They would contact the humans of Earth. They would offer them a deal that could save the galaxy or damn it forever. 'Cause when facing monsters, sometimes you will need to become monsters yourself. Ambassador Taman looked out at the stars, wondering what they had just decided to unleash upon the universe. The age of human warfare was about to begin. Commander Dong Hayan stood on the observation deck of Luna Station, watching the alien ship approach Earth's moon. The massive vessel looked nothing like the military ships humans built. Instead of sharp angles and heavy armor, it curved like a sea creature from the deep ocean. Blue lights pulsed along its hull in patterns that reminded him of a heartbeat. Sir, the alien ship is requesting permission to dock, reported Lieutenant Sora from her station. Dong Han nodded. Grant permission and remind all personnel to follow first contact protocols. No sudden movements, no weapons visible. 3 days had passed since the aliens first made contact. Their message had been simple but shocking. They needed Earth's help to fight a war that threatened the entire galaxy. In return, they offered a technology beyond human imagination. The docking bay filled with a soft, warm light as the alien shuttle landed. The doors opened with a sound like singing wind. Ambassador Taman stepped out, followed by 3 other beings. That looked like nothing from Earth's wildest dreams. Tae-Min was tall and thin, with blue skin that seemed to glow from within. His eyes were large and dark, and when he spoke, his voice sounded like music. Behind him came a creature that looked like a walking tree with golden bark and leaves that sparkled like stars. The third alien floated above the ground, its body like clear water with bright spots of light swimming inside. The fourth looked almost human, except for the silver skin and the fact that it had 4 arms instead of 2. Greetings, Humans of Earth, Taman said in perfect English. I am Ambassador Taman of the Galactic Federation. We come seeking alliance in desperate times. President Soyoung stepped forward to greet them. She had been chosen to lead the human delegation because of her experience in difficult negotiations. Behind her stood General Minho, Admiral Eugene, and Dr. Yoonji, Earth's best xenobiologist. Welcome to Luna Station, President Soyoung said. We are honored by your visit, though troubled by the circumstances that bring you here. The meeting took place in Conference Room Alpha, specially prepared for this historic moment. The aliens sat on one side of a long table, the humans on the other. Between them, holographic displays showed images that would change humanity's understanding of the universe forever. The enemy we face is called the Void Swarm, Taman explained. Images appeared above the table, showing massive, living ships that looked like nightmare creatures from the deepest parts of space. They come from the darkness between galaxies. They consume everything in their path. Dr. Yoonji leaned forward, studying the images with scientific curiosity. These ships appear to be biological. Are they alive? In a way, yes, replied the tree-like being, whose name was Elder Koski, but not alive as we understand life. They are something else, something that should not exist. General Minho watched tactical displays showing Federation fleets being destroyed by swarm forces. The alien military moved with precision and discipline, but they were losing badly. Your forces fight with honor, he observed. What honor does not seem to be working. No, Taman admitted sadly. We have tried everything. Larger fleets, better weapons, new tactics. Nothing stops them. They adapt to every strategy we use. Admiral Eugene studied the battle recordings. Your ships fight like they are dancing. It's very pretty, very precise. But war is not a dance. War is chaos. The floating alien, called Sage Hayren, pulsed with brighter lights. We have evolved beyond the need for chaotic warfare. We fight with intelligence and efficiency. And you are losing, General Minho pointed out bluntly. The room fell silent. The truth was uncomfortable, but it could not be ignored. President Soyoung spoke carefully. What exactly are you asking from us? Taman activated another hologram. This one showed technologies that made the humans gasp in amazement. Medical devices that could cure any disease. Energy sources that could power entire planets. Manufacturing systems that could build anything imaginable. We offer you these gifts, Taman said. Knowledge that will advance your civilization by thousands of years. Medicine that will end suffering. Technology that will give you the stars. In exchange for what? Asked Admiral Eugene, though she already suspected the answer. Soldiers, replied Elder Kosuke. Human soldiers. Volunteers who are willing to fight in ways that we cannot. The Yunji had been examining biological samples from the swarm that the aliens had brought. I see why your weapons are not effective, she said. These creatures heal themselves, but their healing follows predictable patterns. They have weaknesses, but exploiting those weaknesses would require methods that... double quotes. She paused, looking uncomfortable. Methods that would be considered cruel by galactic standards. Finished Min. General Min smiled grimly. Humans are very good at being cruel when we need to be. The negotiations continued for 3 days. The aliens were disturbed by some of the questions humans asked. They wanted to know about swarm psychology, about their pain responses, about whether they could feel fear. You really need to know these things, asked Sage Hirin. To defeat an enemy, you must understand them completely, replied Admiral Eugene. You must know what hurts them, what scares them, what breaks their will to fight. The swarm has no will to break, Taman protested. They are a hive mind. Do not feel fear or pain as individuals. Dr. Yoonji looked up from her studies. Every biological system has pressure points. Okay? Even hive minds must have ways to be disrupted. She showed them her analysis. Okay? Look at these neural pathways. Okay? If you could introduce the right kind of interference, that would require getting very close to them, Elder Kyosuk observed. Close enough to touch them, to fight them hand to hand. Humans are very good at close combat, General Minho said simply. The final agreement was signed in a ceremony, broadcast to both Earth and the Federation. President So-young and Ambassador Taemin shook hands while cameras recorded the historic moment. "We are giving you our most dangerous gift," President So-young said quietly. "Our warriors, use them." "Well, we hope we have not made a terrible mistake," Taemin replied, equally quiet. The terms were clear. Earth would provide volunteer soldiers who would be enhanced with alien technology and trained to fight the swarm. In return, humanity would receive advanced science, medicine, and a place among the galactic community. But there were conditions. Human commanders would have complete freedom in how they fought the war. No alien oversight, no restrictions on tactics, no limits on what methods they could use as the alien ship prepared to leave. Carrying the first group of human volunteers, Dr. Yoonji made a disturbing discovery. The swarm samples reacted strangely to human DNA. There was something about human biology that the swarm had never encountered before. "What does this mean?" Admiral Yujin asked. Dr. Yoonji looked troubled. "I think it means we are about to find out what happens when predators meet prey that was never meant to exist." The galaxy was about to learn why humans had spent their entire history preparing for war. Soon, the Void Swarm would face an enemy that fought not with honor or efficiency, but with the desperate fury of a species that refused to go quietly into the dark. The real war was about to begin. Captain Jae-sung stood in the medical bay of the secret facility on Mars, watching as the alien machines prepared to change him forever. 6 months had passed since Earth signed the agreement with the Galactic Federation. Now the real work was beginning. "Are you ready, Captain?" asked Dr. Yoonji, checking the readings on her instruments. She had been working with the Federation scientists to understand the enhancement process. It was dangerous, and not everyone who entered the machines came out alive. "Ready as I will ever be," Jae-sung replied. He was one of 500 volunteers from Earth's military forces. All of them knew the risks. The alien technology would make them stronger, faster, and more dangerous than any normal human. But it would also change them in ways they could not imagine. The enhancement chamber looked like a giant medical scanner mixed with something from a nightmare. Tubes filled with glowing liquid connected to needles that would inject alien materials directly into his bloodstream. The Federation had warned them that the process was painful beyond description. "Remember," Dr. Yoonji said, as Jae-sung lay down on the metal table, "the aliens have never tried this on humans before. You are the test subjects. If something goes wrong—" "I know," Jae-sung interrupted. "But if we do not try, the swarm will kill everyone anyway." The machines activated with a low humming sound. Soon felt the needles enter his arms, his chest, his spine. Then the pain began. It felt like liquid fire was being poured into his veins. Every cell in his body screamed as the alien technology began to rewrite his DNA. Dr. Yoonji watched the monitors with growing amazement. The human body was adapting to the enhancements faster than any Federation species had ever managed. Where it took other races weeks to adjust, humans were changing in hours. Its bone density is increasing by 30%, she reported to the Federation observers. Muscle fiber is being replaced with synthetic materials. Neural pathways are being enhanced with quantum processors. Ambassador Taemin watched from behind protective glass. He had seen this process performed on volunteers from dozens of species, but never had he witnessed changes this dramatic. Is he still human? He asked quietly. Dr. Yunji looked at the readings. Jae-sung's heart rate had doubled, his brain activity had tripled, and his pain responses had been reduced to almost nothing. I do not know, she admitted. The transformation took 18 hours. When Jae-sung finally opened his eyes, they glowed with a faint blue light. He sat up on the table without any sign of weakness or pain. The machines had changed him into something that was still recognizably human, but clearly much more. How do you feel? Dr. Yoonji asked. Jae-sung considered the question. Okay. He could feel power flowing through his new body. Okay. His senses were sharper, his thoughts clearer, his reflexes faster. But there was something else, something darker. A hunger for violence that had not been there before. Different, he said simply. Over the following weeks, more volunteers underwent the enhancement process. Not all of them survived. Aletta. First 100, only 78, came through the transformation alive. But those who survived became something extraordinary. Lieutenant Sang-woo volunteered for the most extreme modifications. While other enhanced humans retained most of their original appearance, he chose to become something else entirely. His bones were replaced with biometallic composites that could stop bullets. His muscles were woven with synthetic fibers that gave him the strength of 10 normal humans. Why do you want to go this far? Dr. Yoonji asked him before the procedure. Sang-woo looked at the images of swarm creatures on the wall. Because they are monsters, he said. To fight monsters, you must become a monster. The training that followed was unlike anything in human military history. Colonel Hae-won designed combat scenarios that would have killed normal soldiers. The enhanced humans fought in environments with no air and temperatures that would freeze normal blood against enemies that could not be reasoned with or frightened. Forget everything you learned about honorable warfare, Hae-won told her trainees. The swarm does not understand honor. They only understand death. The Federation observers were horrified by the training methods. Human soldiers practiced fighting while severely wounded, continued combat exercises even when their equipment failed, developed tactics that involved sacrificing entire units to achieve objectives. Major Insu worked with human engineers to design new types of warships. Federation vessels were built for crew comfort in long-term missions. Human ships were built for one purpose only, to destroy the enemy, even if it meant destroying themselves in the process. These ships have no escape pods, observed one Federation engineer. Do not plan to retreat, Insu replied. The enhanced humans learned to use weapons that would kill normal soldiers just by holding them. They trained with energy rifles that generated enough heat to melt steel, and with explosive devices that had to be activated manually at close range. But the most disturbing changes were psychological. Dr. Yoonji noticed that the enhanced soldiers were losing their ability to relate to normal humans. They spoke less, smiled less, and seemed to find violence more natural than conversation. They are becoming something else, she reported to Earth's command. The enhancement process is not just changing their bodies, it is changing their minds. Commander Dong Hyen visited the training facility and was shocked by what he saw. Soldiers who had once been his friends now looked at him with eyes that seemed almost alien. They moved differently, spoke differently, and radiated a sense of barely controlled violence. Do you remember why you were fighting? He asked Jae-sung during a private meeting. Jae-sung tilted his head, considering the question. To protect humanity, he said, finally. But I am not sure I am still human enough to be worth protecting. The training culminated in a series of war games against simulated swarm forces. The results amazed even the Federation military experts. Human tactics were chaotic, brutal, and completely unpredictable. But they worked. Where alien forces fought with precision and coordination, humans fought with fury and determination. They used strategies that made no logical sense, but achieved objectives that careful planning could not accomplish. Tight, like they are already dead, observed General Minho, watching the exercises from the command center. They take risks that no sane soldier would consider. Perhaps that is what we need, replied Admiral Eugene. Soldiers who are not sane by normal standards. As the first enhanced human battle groups prepared for deployment, Dr. Yunji made a final discovery that chilled her to the bone. The enhancement process had awakened something in human DNA that had been sleeping for thousands of years, something that their ancestors had used to survive in a world full of predators. The volunteers were not just becoming better soldiers. They were reverting to something that humanity had been in its darkest past, something that had been necessary for survival, but had been left behind when humans learned to build civilizations. We have created monsters, she told President Soyoung in her final report. Perfect monsters for fighting this war. But I fear what will happen when the war is over. The enhanced humans boarded their transport ships, ready to face the void. Swarm. They carried with them weapons that could destroy planets, an enhancement that made them nearly indestructible. But they also carried something else, the willingness to do whatever was necessary to win, no matter the cost to themselves or anyone else. The galaxy was about to learn why Earth's history was written in blood, and why sometimes the only way to defeat monsters was to become something worse. Admiral Eugen stood on the bridge of the Soul's Fury, watching the swarm fleet through the main viewing screen. The enemy ships looked like massive sea creatures floating in the darkness of space. Their hulls pulsed with organic rhythms, and weapon ports opened and closed like breathing mouths. 12 swarm biocruisers detected, reported Lieutenant Sora from her station. Each one is 3 times the size of our largest ship. Eugen nodded calmly. She commanded 13 human vessels, all built with a new aggressive design philosophy. Her ships were smaller than Federation cruisers, but they carried more weapons and had crews that feared nothing. All ships. This is Admiral Eugen. She spoke into the communication system. Remember your training. We are not here to win pretty. We are here to win. The Kepler 186 system had been under swarm control for 2 months. The Federation had tried 3 times to retake it, losing hundreds of ships in the process. Now it was humanity's turn to show what they could do. Captain Jae-sung prepared his enhanced Marines for the boarding assault. 200 soldiers stood ready in the launch bay, their powered armor making them look like metal demons. Each one had undergone the full enhancement process in months of brutal training. Remember, Jae-sung told his troops, these creatures think as one mind. They expect us to fight like the Federation forces. They expect honor and rules. Give them chaos instead. The boarding pods looked nothing like Federation equipment. Instead of gentle docking systems, they were designed to punch through enemy HULs like bullets. Half the Marines might die just getting inside the swarm ships, but those who survived would be inside the enemy's defenses. Lieutenant Sang-woo checked his weapons one final time. The enhancement process had changed him more than anyone else. His body was now more machine than flesh, built for one purpose, killing things that normal humans could not kill. Launch pods, ordered J-Sung.50 boarding pods, shot out from the human ships like missiles. The swarm vessels tried to destroy them with defensive fire, but the pods were too small and fast. Most made it through the deadly space between the fleets. The first pod smashed through the hull of a swarm biocruiser with tremendous force. The organic walls around the impact site began to bleed and convulse. Emergency systems inside the creature ship tried to seal the breach, but the human Marines were already inside. Sang-woo led his squad through corridors that looked like the inside of a living animal. The walls pulsed with veins, carrying glowing fluid. The floor felt soft and warm under their boots. And everywhere, swarm creatures waited for them. The first swarm warrior they encountered stood 3 meters tall, with 4 arms ending in razor-sharp claws. Its exoskeleton was thick enough to stop normal bullets, and its speed was incredible. It moved toward the humans with the confidence of a perfect predator. Sang-Woo met it head-on. His enhanced strength allowed him to grab the creature's arms and stop its attack. Then he did something that shocked both his own troops and the swarm. Hive mind watching through the warrior's eyes. Instead of shooting the creature or stabbing it with a knife, Sang-Woo tore into it with his bare hands. His enhanced fingers punched through the exoskeleton like it was paper. He ripped out vital organs and used the creature's own acid blood as a weapon against other warriors. "What is he doing?" gasped one of the newer Marines. "Winning," replied Jae-soon simply. The swarm had never faced enemies that fought this way. Their hive mind tried to analyze the human tactics, but there was no logic to follow. The humans fought like wild animals, using whatever they could find as weapons. Dr. Yoon-ji had briefed them well. She had discovered that the swarm's nervous system worked on quantum frequencies that could be disrupted by certain types of bioelectric interference. The enhanced humans, with their modified neural systems, generated exactly the right kind of interference. As more boarding pods reached their targets, the effect became clear. The swarm bioships began to lose coordination. Their perfect hive-mind connection was being scrambled by the presence of enhanced humans inside their halls. Major In-soo commanded the fighter squadrons that attacked the swarm fleet from outside. Federation pilots had always targeted weapon systems and engines following standard military doctrine. But In-soo had studied Dr. Yoon-ji's biological reports carefully. "All fighters target the nerve clusters," he ordered. "Ignore the weapons. Hit them where it hurts." His human fighters dove toward the massive bioships like angry wasps. Their weapons fired concentrated energy bursts at specific points on the organic hulls. Each hit sent waves of pain through the creature ship's nervous systems. The swarm had never experienced pain before, till warriors were designed to ignore damage and continue fighting. But this was different. This was agony that reached into their collective consciousness and made it possible to think clearly. On the bridge of Seoul's Fury, Admiral Eugene watched as the enemy formation began to fall apart. The swarm ships were no longer moving in perfect coordination. They were reacting to pain, fear, and confusion that their hive mind had never been designed to handle. "Impossible," whispered Ambassador Tammin from his observation post on the human flagship. "How are they doing this?" Colonel Hae-won, who was coordinating the overall assault, turned to answer him. "Because we fight dirty," she said with grim satisfaction. "We use the enemy's strengths against them." The battle reached its climax when Kae-sung and his Marines reached the central nervous system of the largest biocruiser. The chamber they found looked like a cathedral made of living tissue, with a massive brain-like structure pulsing in the center. "This is it," Jae-sung said to his remaining troops. More than half his Marines had died getting this far, but that was exactly what they had expected. "This is what we came for." The enhanced humans did something that would have horrified any civilized species. They began to tear apart the bioship's brain with their bare hands, not to kill it quickly, but to cause maximum disruption to the hive mind network. The screams that echoed through the swarm fleet were not sounds, but quantum signals of pure agony. Every swarm creature in the system felt the death of their central node, K, and the experience was beyond their ability to process. One by one, the swarm bioships began to shut down. Their perfect coordination collapsed into chaos as the hive mind tried desperately to understand what was happening to them. "Target destroyed," reported Jae-sung calmly as the biocruiser around him began to die, requesting extraction. There would be no extraction. The boarding pods had been one-way trips, and everyone had known it. The enhanced Marines would die with their targets, taking as many swarm creatures with them as possible. "Understood," replied Admiral Eugene. "Well done, Captain. Well done." The Federation support fleet watched in amazed horror as the human ships continued their attack even after taking catastrophic damage. When Sol's Fury lost half its hull to swarm weapons, Ku simply ordered her crew to ram the nearest enemy vessel. The collision destroyed both ships, but it also sent a message that the swarm had never received before. These new enemies would rather die than retreat. They fought with a fury that made death preferable to defeat. When the battle ended, 60% of the human fleet was gone. By Federation standards, it was a disaster. By human standards, it was a complete victory. All 12 swarm biocruisers had been destroyed, and the system was free. Dr. Yoon-ji analyzed the battle recordings from her research ship. What she discovered changed everything about the war. The enhanced humans had not just won a battle. They had broken something fundamental in the swarm's collective consciousness. The hive mind is learning to feel fear, she reported to Earth Command. For the first time in their existence, they are afraid. Ambassador Tommen filed his report to the Galactic Council with shaking hands. The humans had saved the system, but they had done it by becoming something that terrified him more than the swarm itself. The galaxy now had new guardians, but these guardians were monsters who smiled while they killed and who viewed death as just another weapon to be used against their enemies. The war was far from over, but it had taken a turn that no one could have predicted. Humanity had found its purpose among the stars, and that purpose was to be the thing that even nightmares feared. 6 months after the first battle, the human fleet had grown into something that made even their allies nervous. Admiral Eugene now commanded 300 warships, each one built for maximum destruction. Enhanced human soldiers had earned a reputation that spread fear across the galaxy, among friends and enemies alike. The final battle would take place in the void itself, the empty space between galaxies where the swarm had built their home. The enemy's main base was a living structure so massive it could be seen from light years away. It pulsed with the collective thoughts of trillions of swarm creatures. General Minho stood on the bridge of New Terra, the largest human warship ever built. Round him, hundreds of Federation vessels waited for the assault to begin, but everyone knew this was humanity's war now. The aliens were just there to watch. All human ships. This is General Minho. He spoke into the communications system. Today, we end this threat forever. Remember, we are not just fighting for victory. We are fighting for the right to exist in this universe. Captain Jae-sung prepared for what he knew would be his final mission. The enhancement process had changed him so much that he barely remembered what it felt like to be fully human. His body was more machine than flesh, built for war and nothing else. How many of us will come back? One of the younger, enhanced soldiers. Jae-sung looked at the recruit with glowing blue eyes. That is not the question. The question is whether anything will be left of the enemy when we are done. The assault began with a coordinated attack by the entire human fleet. But instead of the careful, organized advance that Federation forces would use, the humans charged straight into the enemy defenses like a pack of wild animals. Ships rammed into the living walls of the swarm base, their crews fighting hand-to-hand in the organic corridors even as their vessels tore themselves apart. The Federation observers watched in horror as human commanders ordered attacks that would kill their own people along with the enemy. Lieutenant Sang-woo, now more cyborg than human, led the deepest penetration into the swarm base. His team had orders to reach the central consciousness of the hive mind and destroy it. The mission was suicide, and everyone knew it. "Why do you do this?" asked a Federation officer who was monitoring the assault. "Why do you throw your lives away so easily?" Colonel Hae-won, coordinating the attack from her command ship, answered without taking her eyes off the tactical displays. "Because some things are worth dying for. Because humans have never been good at knowing when to quit." The fighting inside the swarm base was beyond description. Enhanced humans with strength like machines fought creatures that were living weapons. The corridors filled with smoke, blood, and the screams of dying things. But the most important battle was taking place in a dimension that normal eyes could not see. Dr. Yunji had discovered that the swarm's hive mind existed partly in quantum space, connected by frequencies that spanned the entire galaxy. The enhanced humans, their modified neural systems, were disrupting those frequencies just by existing. Every human soldier inside the base was like a virus in the swarm's collective consciousness, causing pain and confusion that the creatures had never experienced before. The hive mind is breaking down, Dr. Yunji reported from her research vessel. The humans are not just destroying the base, they are destroying the swarm's ability to think as one. Major Insu led his fighter squadrons in attacks that defied all logic. His pilots flew their ships directly into the organic weapons of the enemy base, using their own explosions as weapons. The casualty rate was horrific, where the results were undeniable. The swarm had never faced enemies willing to die for victory. Their collective mind could not understand creatures that viewed their own deaths as acceptable losses. The concept of sacrifice was alien to beings that valued survival above all else. Deep inside the base, Sung and his remaining soldiers reached the heart of the swarm consciousness. The chamber they found was like being inside a living brain, the size of a city. Neural pathways as thick as subway tunnels pulsed with the thoughts of trillions of creatures. "This is it," Sung said to his team. Only 12 soldiers remained from the hundreds who had started the mission. "This is where we make our stand." What happened next would be remembered as the moment when the balance of power in the galaxy shifted forever. The enhanced humans did not simply destroy the swarm's central mind. They infected it with something much worse, using technology that Dr. Yunji had developed. They introduced human neural patterns into the hive mind network for the first time in their existence. The swarm creatures experienced individual thoughts, personal fears, the terrible loneliness of being alone in their own minds. The effect was catastrophic across the galaxy. Swarm creatures that had always moved with perfect coordinations suddenly found themselves confused and afraid. They could no longer share thoughts or combine their strength. Each one was alone, just like humans had always been. "The hive mind is collapsing," reported Dr. Yunji, watching her instruments with amazement and horror. "The swarm is learning what it means to be afraid." The destruction of the main base created a shockwave that rippled through quantum space. Every telepathic species in the galaxy felt the moment when trillions of connected minds suddenly went silent. The silence that followed was deeper than death. When the battle ended, the human fleet had lost more than half its ships. By any rational measure, it was a disaster. But by human standards, it was the greatest victory in the history of warfare. The swarm was not just defeated, they were broken. In the aftermath, the true cost became clear. The enhanced human soldiers could never return to normal life. They had become something beyond human, adapted for war in ways that made them incompatible with peace. President So Young received the final reports from the battle zone with mixed emotions. Earth had saved the galaxy, but they had lost something precious in the process. The soldiers who won the war were humanity's children, but they were no longer entirely human. Colonel Haywan made a decision that would change the future of the galaxy. Standing among the ruins of a swarm base, she declared the formation of the Human Military Protectorate. The enhanced soldiers would not return to Earth. Instead, they would patrol the borders of known space, protecting civilization from threats that had not yet appeared. "We are what humanity needed us to become," she announced to the Federation Council. "But we are no longer what humanity wants us to be. We will guard the darkness so that others can live in the light. Ambassador Taman watched the human fleet disappear into the deep void, carrying with them weapons that could destroy planets and soldiers who had become living weapons themselves. The galaxy was safe, but at a price that made him question whether they had won or simply traded one nightmare for another. Dr. Yunji sent her final message to Earth before joining the enhanced humans in their exile. We created monsters because monsters were what the universe needed, she transmitted. Now, we must live with the consequences of that choice. The war was over, but the galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had found its place among the stars as the guardians of civilization, but they were guardians who ruled through fear. Protectors who were more dangerous than the threats they faced. On Earth, children would grow up hearing stories of the heroes who saved the galaxy, but those heroes would never come home and become something else, something necessary but terrible. The universe had needed monsters to fight its wars. It had found them in humanity's darkest potential, and now it would have to live with monsters as its protectors, knowing that the price of safety was the loss of innocence forever in the end. Humanity had won by becoming everything their enemies feared. The question that remained was whether the galaxy they had saved would ever be able to forgive them for what they had become.